Hi everybody. In this demonstration, we'll prepare a straight-line depreciation schedule for equipment that was placed in service on January 1st. The company uses a standard depreciation format for all of their depreciable assets. The standard format can be used to depreciate assets up to 7 years. We need to use the SLN, round, and if functions to create our schedules. Soros Company purchased equipment and placed it in service on 1/1/X1. The equipment cost $7,500, and management expects to use the equipment in their business for 5 years with no salvage value. Fill in the cost, life, and salvage value in the data input area. Let's insert a blank row before year 1. We're going to need that later. Now we're ready to write our formula to calculate straight-line depreciation for year 1 using the SLN function. With your cursor on C12, open the arguments for the SLN function. Cost comes from B6. Salvage value comes from B8. And life comes from B7. Be sure to make these cells a fixed reference. And click OK. Now let's modify this formula to include a round function. Don't need it for this asset, but there are other assets that we might need to round to the nearest dollar. Depreciation is an estimate, so we don't need to have exact pennies. Let's get this rounded to the nearest dollar. Equals round. Use our SLN arguments. And now we're telling Excel to round to the nearest dollar and close up these parentheses. Now that formula should work just fine when we copy it down through year 5. But we have not told Excel to stop calculating depreciation beyond year 5, so we are going to have a problem unless we modify that formula. See, it just keeps on depreciating. So let's modify our rounded SLN formula to include an if statement. The logic we need to include in the if statement is the year in B12 less than or equal to the life shown in B7? If true, enter the SLN function. If false, leave the line blank. Equals if B12 is less than or equal to B7. If that is true, enter the rounded SLN arguments. If it's false, enter a blank line. Now when we copy the formula down through year 7, we get depreciation expense through year 5 and a blank line for years 6 and 7. But notice that there still is a formula written in year 6 and year 7. Now let's calculate accumulated depreciation. As you remember, accumulated depreciation is last year's ending balance of accumulated plus this year's depreciation expense. So the basic formula is very simple. D11 plus C12. Now, that's going to work well until we get through year 5, but 6 and 7 are going to be all messed up. Let me show you. So what we need to do is to modify our basic formula with an if statement applying the same logic that we used for column C. Equals if B12 is less than or equal to B7. If that's true, enter D11 plus C12. If it's false, enter a blank line. Now let's copy that down through year 7 and see if it fixed our problem. Yes, accumulated depreciation grew each year until it was fully depreciated at the end of year 5. Year 6 and 7 are blank, but there are formulas in row 6 or year 6 and year 7. Those formulas must be there. Net book value is calculated as cost minus accumulated depreciation. Again, the basic formula is very simple. Cost in B6 minus accumulated depreciation in D12. Again, we'll have a problem when we get to years 6 and 7. Let's see how it looks. So we're going to need to once again modify our formula to use the same if statement that we used in columns C and D. Equals if B12 is less than or equal to B7. If that's true, B6 cost minus D12 accumulated depreciation. Otherwise, enter a blank space. And when we copy this formula down through year 7, it shows that it is fully depreciated at the end of year 5. Year 6 and 7 are left blank, but there is a formula written in the cell for rows 6 and 7. Now, one more thing. I'm an accountant and I don't like messy schedules. This is a depreciation schedule. We have it rounded to the nearest dollar, so we should not be showing pennies. Also, it's an internal schedule. Outsiders aren't going to see it, so we don't need to have dollar signs muddying the whole thing up. So I'm going to change the format to accounting 0 decimal places and no symbol. Okay, that's all for this schedule. See you next time.